Hi. So we are going to start a new course on number theory for IOQM, RMO, and INMO. So as you are aware that the exam is on January 9th, that is your IOQM. So I'm going to prepare this course and launch it on the Art of Math website pretty soon. So what I want to target in this course is number theory for like Indian National Maths Olympiad up to that level. Obviously, there is some advanced stuff beyond that, but right now you guys must be preparing for IUQM and RMO. So that is what I'll focus on first. There will be an advanced course probably later. So the way this course will be structured is I will have like theory first, and theory will start from the absolute basics, and we'll cover all of the relevant topics that you sort of need to be aware of before you can proceed to solve problems at this level, national olympiad level. And once we are done with the theory, we will go to the problem solving section. So the problem solving section of the course will involve questions from actual contests and past years problems from all of these exams and national olympiads across the world as well. So problem solving section will be after the theory. So I'll just begin with theory right now. So the first thing that we learn about in this video is about divisibility. So divisibility basically is a notion that you are familiar with from lower classes. I will just define this here. So for integers a and b, a and b, where a is not equal to 0, we say that a divides b, a divides b, and this is the symbol for division. A divides B. That means B is divisible by A if B is equal to AC for some integer C. For some integer C. So basically, B should be A multiplied by some integer. Then we can say that B is divisible by A. Now, from this definition, it follows that 0 is equal to A into 0. This implies that A divides 0 for any integer A except 0, for any integer a where a is not equal to 0, right? So 0 is basically divisible by all integers. Then we know that if a divides b and b is not equal to 0, then mod of a must be less than equal to mod of b, right? Why is this true? Because a divides b means b is equal to a into c, and if b is not 0, then that means c cannot be 0. So c must be some integer. It could be plus minus 1, plus minus 2, and so on, and higher integers. So obviously, if you take mod on both sides here, mod b should be equal to mod a into mod c, and mod c will be greater than equal to 1. So we get that mod b should be greater than equal to mod a, right? This really means that if A is dividing B, then B must be greater than A or equal to A. Those are the two options. Let's look at some more properties. So the third one that we look at is if A divides B and A divides C, then A will divide some linear combination of B and C, alpha beta plus beta C. So where alpha beta are any integers. So what do we mean by this thing? This means that it is a linear combination of B and C, of B and C, right? So a linear combination means like if you can combine B and C in any way with some multiples and still A will divide that. The reason for this is pretty obvious. B should be equal to AK1 and C should be equal to AK2 from this divisibility definition. Therefore, alpha B plus beta C should be equal to alpha AK1 plus beta B beta AK2. And you can take A common here and alpha K1 plus beta K2. Since K1 and K2 here are integers and alpha beta are also integers, this is also an integer. So we get that alpha B plus beta C is A into some integer. So it is divisible by A. So let's see the fourth one. If A divides B and A divides B plus minus C, then A divides C. So this is sort of the converse of this one. Here A divides B and A divides C, then you get A divides some combination of B and C. Now you're saying if A divides B and A divides B plus minus C, then obviously it must divide C as well, right? Again, you can prove this in a pretty straightforward manner. You can say B is equal to AK and A divides B plus minus C. So B plus minus C is equal to AK2, let's say. Therefore, you can say plus minus C is equal to AK2 minus B, which is AK2 minus AK. So that is A into K2 minus K, and K2 minus K is an integer. So plus minus C is equal to A times some integer. So A divides C, right? So the next property that we'll look at is property number 5, which says just A divides A. This is the reflexive property. So A will divide A because A is equal to A into 1. So that is obvious. Then if A divides B and B divides C, then A divides C. This is the transitive property. That should also be fairly clear. There is no issue here because B is equal to AK1 and C is equal to BK2. Therefore, C is equal to K2 into B, which is A into K1. So it is A into K2 K1, which is an integer. So C is divisible by A. The seventh property is if A divides B and B divides A, then A is equal to B. So this is a very important property because in number theory, it is really hard to prove equality sometimes of two different numbers. So this property comes in handy because this implies that B is equal to AK1 and A is equal to BK2. So we can say that A is equal to B, which is AK1, K2, right? So what we get from here is K1, K2 is equal to 1, right? So therefore, K2 is equal to 1 by K1 and K2 is 1 by K1. Therefore, A is equal to B by K1, right? So we get back the same condition. So the only way this can be true is K2, K1 is 1 or A is 0, right? So what we can say here is use this condition probably here. So we will get B is equal to AK1 and K1, K2 is 1. So let me just think. There is some issue here that is happening, some logical problem here. B is equal to AK1 and A is equal to BK2. And therefore, A is equal to B, which is AK1 into K2. So K2, K1 is coming out to be 1. Oh, okay, okay. So K2, K1 are two integers. The product of two integers cannot be 1 unless both the integers are plus minus 1, right? K1 should be 1 and K2 should be 1. These were supposed to be two integers. They could be plus minus 1. And if K1 or K2 are both plus minus 1, then obviously you get B is equal to A, right? So slight, you don't have to do all this. Like it's obvious here only. Because K1, K2 is 1, you cannot have two integers multiplying to become 1 unless both the integers are 1 or minus 1. So that will imply that B is equal to A, right? Now, once we have looked at this definition of divisibility, the next thing that we look at is the Euclid division lemma. Euclid's division lemma, which says, it says that for any positive integers, for any positive integers, A and B, A and B, there exists a unique pair of integers Q and R such that B is equal to AQ plus R. Here R is less than A. So basically we are saying if we divide B with A, we will get an integer which will be the quotient and an integer which will be the remainder. And the remainder must be smaller than the divisor, because if the remainder was larger, then you would have A plus 1 or A into Q plus 1 here, right? So this is something that you have encountered in 10th grade as well, and it should be pretty familiar to you. So what we will do now is use the definition of divisibility and Euclid's division lemma to check out some example problems. So first question can be, prove that n power 5 minus 5n cube plus 4n is divisible by 120, right? So let's try and factorize this. If we factorize this, we will get n power 5 minus 5n cube plus 4n is equal to n times n power 4 minus 4n square plus minus 5n square minus 5n square plus 4, which can be again factorized as n into n square minus 1 and n square minus 4, which can be written as n minus 1, n plus 1, n minus 2, n plus 2, right? Now, if you rearrange that product properly, you will get n minus 2, n minus 1, n plus 1, n plus 2. And you can see that this is a product of 5 consecutive numbers. 5 consecutive numbers. Product of 5 consecutive numbers will always be divisible by 120. Why? Will always be divisible by 120 because we can take it into several cases. So let's think about several cases where we have product of 5 numbers. So you have this product n minus 2, n minus 1, n plus 1, n plus 2. Now if any of the numbers, basically if n is equal to any number in this set, minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1 and 2, then obviously this product becomes 0. Product is equal to 0 because one of these factors will disappear. And then we can say that 120 definitely divides 0 because any integer divides 0, right? So in this case, when n is equal to anything here, we get the fact that the product is divisible by 120 because it becomes 0. The other case is when n is greater than equal to 3. When n is greater than equal to 3, what you will have here is something like this. This number will be 5 factorial. This number will turn out to be 5 factorial multiplied by n plus 2 C5. Why? Let's see why. This is 5 into 4 into 3 into 1 into n plus 2 factorial by n minus 3 factorial divided by 5 factorial. So 5 factorial cancels and you get basically n plus 2, n plus 1, n minus 1 and n minus 2, right? So basically this product, if you multiply up and down, like you can take the product of the numbers n minus 2, n minus 1, n plus 1, n plus 2, and you can divide by n minus 3 factorial and multiply by n minus 3 factorial. So what you will get is n plus 2 factorial by n minus 3 factorial and divide by 5 factorial and 5 factorial. So you get 120 multiplied by n plus 2 C5, right? This is what you are getting. This product is equal to 120 times n plus 2 C5. Now n plus 2 C5 is actually the number of ways of selecting 5 things out of n plus 2 things. So that number of ways is obviously an integer. So this is equal to 120 into some integer, right? So we have proved that it is divisible by 120 in the other case as well. Correct? Okay. Let's do one more question on divisibility so that you get the hang of what we are trying to achieve here. So prove that n square plus 3n plus 5 is divisible by, is not divisible by 121, is not divisible by 121. Okay, so n square plus 3n plus 5 is not divisible by 121. So we can write this n square plus 3n plus 5 as n square plus 7n minus 4n minus 28 in order to factorize it plus 33, right? I have written it like this so that I can factorize it as n minus 7, n plus 7 and n minus 4 plus 33, right? Correct. So we have written n square plus 3n plus 5 as n plus 7 n minus 4 plus 33, which is true. Now if now we know that 33 is divisible by 11, is divisible by 11. So therefore 11 will divide n square plus 3n plus 5 if and only if 11 divides n plus 7 multiplied by n minus 4, right? If only if 11 will divide this, then only the whole thing can be divisible by this, right? Therefore, if 11 does not divide n plus 7 into n minus 4, then 11 does not divide n square plus 3n plus 5, right? So this is one case. So in order for n square plus 3n plus 5 to be divisible by 11, we need to have 11 divides this, right? So otherwise 11 will not divide this. So therefore that implies 121 will not divide n square plus 3n plus 5. If 11 only doesn't divide this, then obviously 121, which is 11 square, will not divide this, right? So one case is this. One case we have covered. When 11 does not divide this product, then we have proved the statement. Now let's take the other case. If 11 divides this, right, then obviously we get that this part, then 11 will divide n square plus 3n plus 5, right? But you will realize here that n plus 7 and n plus n minus 4 are two integers whose difference is 11, whose difference is 11. So if 11 divides this, then 11 divides either n plus 4, either n plus 7 or n minus 4, right? So then only the whole factor, the whole product will be divisible by 11 if it divides either one of those two factors, right? But what is happening is, suppose let's assume that it divides n plus 7, but then it will also divide n plus 7 minus 11, which is n minus 4, right? If 11 divides n plus 7 implies 11 divides n minus 4 and vice versa, because the difference of these two integers is 11. So therefore, we will have that 11 will divide both of them in this case, right? In this case, 11 divides both of these. So therefore, 121 will divide n square plus 3n plus 121 will divide n plus 7 into n minus 4, correct? Because 11 divides both of these factors. And 121 divides this, but clearly 121 does not divide 33, right? So 121 cannot divide the whole expression. So basically the logic is this. If 11 divides n plus 7 n minus 4, then 121 divides n plus 7 n minus 4, but 121 does not divide 33. Therefore, 121 does not divide n plus 7 n minus 4 minus 33 or plus 33, right? Which implies 121 does not divide n square plus 3n plus 5. So we have proved this in this case, and we already proved earlier if 11 does not divide this. We already proved that obviously then 11 cannot divide n square plus 3n plus 5. And that means that 121 cannot divide n square plus 3n plus 5. So in both the cases, what we are getting is 121 can never divide n square plus 3n plus 5, right? So this is how you prove this. What we will do is we will end the video here, where we have discussed divisibility and Euclid's division lemma. Obviously, many more problems are there, and we will look at problems once we finish the basic theory. And let's look at it in future videos once we have finished the theory section for this, right? So that's all for this. I'll see you next time.